week for this class, so you'll be on your own. Yeah, so deal with it. So what I want to show was for this specific shot, how we take our item and actually put our item like under her fingers, because obviously we need to get that.
Know this. That's real hard.
So there's my footage. That's the merge. There we go. Pull it off. And that's what it would look like without any type of fanciness applied to it. So what we can do is, I played around with this a little bit. Like your first thing you always want to try is keying. Like as much keying as you can do. That way it's automatic. You have less work to do. This one you can't key. It's the colors are too similar. So the color of this and the color of her skin, those are too close together. There's
like 80% black.
Right. There's nothing we could do with that. So we're always left with the last choice, which is Roto, which sucks, but it's only less than 100 frames, so it's not too terrible. And a lot of times our fingers are together, so again, it's not too terrible.
Sometimes her hands are just kind of, one of the hands is off screen.
Right, which is perfect. And our goal too is that we want it to be actually between her hand and her reflection. That way it looks like it's actually seated right there. So what I have, I'll show you what the rotos or the keying look like, just so you can see it. So the first thing I did, pretty close. First thing I did was I graded it just to kind of bring in some of the colors. I copied the alpha channel from that, and I pre-multiplied it just to kind of isolate that area that I need to worry about transparency. Then using a Luma keyer, I was able to pull that off, and then dilating it and blurring it and grading it, and it turned out to be a mess. So, like, none of this stuff here is good. Yeah, even that's no good, and that's no good. There we go. All right. So, oops, I don't want to delete you. I'll set you over here. So this is what I have so far. Is I have my footage, and then I have my other piece of footage that's going on top of it. Okay. So I need to then put those two things together so that I have some transparency on there. So on your merge, you have this little arrow that's a mask. So what I'm going to do is just pipe in a roto right there. So I go to roto, drag that there. It disappears because it's just gone. So it doesn't go away. I'm just going to add an invert between it. And now I'll be able to see it, and then everything I draw will become transparent. So as I start drawing this, you'll see that her finger's there, and then the screen behind it is not. Now, one recommendation is don't try to feather too much of the individual pieces, because we can feather all of them together at the end. That's the recommended way to do it. All right. So this is 1568. There's that one. I also recommend don't try to tackle too many of these at once. You can do one shape. It'll take you not very long to take one shape and follow it along here. Also, don't try to do the entire hand as one shape, because it's very difficult to do that. Watch how easy it is just to go up a couple frames and then grab this and rotate it and get it roughly in position. Now, if it overlaps the other finger, who cares? All we care about is this point of contact right here at the bottom. So I'm just kind of making sure that it hits it right about there. Then I can go up a couple frames, grab it again, and go back a couple frames. And what you do is you just go up a couple frames each time. So I'm literally just going up like 2 frames and then repositioning it. Then I'll come back after and go between and see where I need to do stuff. Like right there, probably not. I think it's blurry enough where I don't need anything there. If anything, I can maybe, I don't know, I'll squeeze it. I think that should be good. Okay, so here I'll pull this over a little bit more, pull it over a little bit more. And obviously this should extend past the grid. Make sure it extends past the grid. All right, there we go. So now I have that one finger, and that's almost 10 frames. It doesn't take me too long to do those 10 frames. So then what I would do is I would do all of those fingers. So I would do all the ones on the left hand, all the ones on the right hand. If I come over to my roto shape, oops, you can rename these things. This will be her left index. You don't have to rename them. It just helps if you ever need to go back and edit or tweak or whatever. And then after you're done with one shape, I would just eyeball to turn it off. That way you focus on the next shape. That way you're not seeing the other shape there. Okay, and then to get the next shape, you just go back to your drawing tool. Make sure you're back at the beginning. And then we would just draw in that next shape. And it's fine to go like way past it. That's no big deal either. Just go way past it. There we go. Go up a couple frames. Now you can kind of estimate too, like how far is she actually moving her thumb, or how fast is she moving it. And she doesn't really move her thumb that quick, so I'll just move that here. And just kind of go back frame at a time and just kind of adjust it. Sometimes it helps to kind of pull it off, see where it's at, and then bring it back in. There we go. So you'll see how quickly that process is going to go. And this is going to be a lot more accurate than trying to key it, because with keying we're going to get a lot of artifacts and noise and whatever else. Alright, so once we're done with all of them, we'll go to the root. So each one of these, the Bezier and the index and all the other fingers you would have there, each one of those I can go through and I can edit their opacity, I can edit their feathering, or I can go to the root, oops, set that back to 0, or I can go to the root and I can edit all of them. So as I play with this, I'm editing the feathering on all of the fingers. Oops. If I hit Q, I can actually see what the feather is looking like as I tweak it. And then I could also adjust my feather fall off. I could also adjust the opacity of it. There we go. Okay, and then once I get that other finger in there, it'll obviously look a bit better. Okay, and we also have to keep in mind that we're going to be moving, so you have a little bit of leeway too. Like if you stare too long at one frame, it might say, ooh, I can see the edges, or it doesn't look very realistic. It's moving, so you have some leeway, you have some playroom on those.
30 frames.
Right. Or 24. Alright, so that's what you would do for that shot. So every time we have that going on, that's what we would want to happen. And then any other time where she's in the way of it, so when we have the screen and her hand is in the way of the screen, where's the other one at? So like this, it's not a big deal because a screen and her are two separate elements. Same thing here. Then on this one, we have a very similar type thing where we have the screen and we have her hand and it's doing that kind of thing. So you may need to do some rotoing on this. You could try to key this also, so just to kind of see if this would work. I'm going to add in key light. I'm going to connect the background, or sorry, the source to the footage. And then I'm going to go through, and key light is, I like this one the best. So basically pick a color. So I'm going to click on my swatch, Control Shift click on her hand, and then I can hit A for alpha and see where it's at. So already it's not looking too promising. Let me grab, yeah, that one might work.
Like mask it off.
Right. Well, I can mask it off. I'm not worried about that. I'm just looking at this. So anytime you look at a key, focus on the main areas, because we could always fill the rest of this in with white. Just where her hand is, we want that to be obviously transparent. All right, so let's try this out. So here's our merge. So let's just use this as our mask here. Oops. I need to change this to an alpha. So I'm going to shuffle in. I don't need to do that. What am I doing? I'm just going to drag that to there and go to this and just make sure it says alpha. Yep. So you can see there's a definite difference in the two items there. Just to see that a little bit clearer, let's drop in color bars or something. Well, that didn't do anything. Oh. Let's drop in color bars. There we go. So now we can see where her hand is at. So maybe we want to come into our key light and come and play with that controls. Not really. Nope.
You want to have her dissolve in the screen, that would work.
Right, her dissolve into the screen. So yeah, I would probably use a roto on that too, and it can be a looser roto, especially with where she's moving. Okay, now some of these too, you may not even need a roto because you have the screen kind of glowing, so it may look kind of neat to have her hand there and just feel like it's a glow on her skin rather than her hand actually like under the screen itself. All right. Cool. All right. So that's that part of that. Yes, sir.
Can you zoom out so I can see the backing of the node graph?
No, this is a mess.
God, right.
Yeah, because that's for each one of the shots and all their stuff. All right, so that would be for that assignment. So you're just going to go through, like we talked about, and create some sort of interface for her. It can be pretty simple too. You could do like on one of them I saw, instead of having a full-blown screen, they just had like dots, and so her fingers were like moving these dots around. So that's like another way to kind of get around having to do a full-blown keyboard and focus on all of the stuff. You can just do stuff like that. You could also look at your tracking that we played with right here. So you could track like her fingers, and you could actually animate stuff with those tracking points. So think about that too, just like we did with the headlights. So you could track something, get the keyframes and apply it to something else, or you could just manually track it because it's not like she's moving a whole lot. Okay, so that's that part. Now the other part that we talked about doing was that Warwick Castle. So doing the 3D track, adding some items into that scene, at least 3 items into the scene. And then the other one was this one here. So this is the only one we haven't talked about yet. So with this one, we have this guy on a green screen. Come on. There we go. And you can see he has these guns and he's shooting. And he's just kind of sliding along. Okay. Now with this one, there is no camera tracking. This is locked in. Typically when you camera track on a green screen, you put those X's down. For whatever reason they put the X's down. They don't need the X's because the camera isn't moving. So I don't know why they even have those.
I guess just they have one green screen set.
Just to mess with us.
Yeah, I bet they just have the one green screen set and they're like, you want to remove the tape? No.
Right. Nope. So one thing I did here, like if you look at the original footage, it's 1920 by 1080, but there's a tiny bit of black bar on the top and a tiny bit on the bottom. So what I did was I reformatted it to 2048 by 1080, which is the size of the other one that I was working with. So that works, setting up to that. What was it, 1920? Yeah, it's close enough. So that'll work. So I reformatted it so it cuts it. I could have also used a crop node. Come on. And when I use a crop node, all I have to do is just drag this down and say, there's the top of it. And then here's the bottom of it. And then I would say reformat. And then I would just reformat it to whatever size I cropped it to. This could come down another pixel or so. There we go. Okay, so that works also doing it that way. Now the first thing in here, we have to pull out the green screen. We have to eliminate, obviously, that. I'm just going to introduce you to the 3 main keyers that we would use for this task. So one of them is key light, the other one is primat, and then the other one is ultimat. So all of these come with nuke that you can use, and they're all right here. So there's key light, ultimat, and primat. Those are typically the 3 big keyers. These ones, the IBK gizmo, people have used too. I just don't typically use it. So key light. So after I reformat it / crop it or whatever, I'm going to go to key light for this one. And this is how key light works. You pick your color. So I go to my screen color, I hold control, and then I click on what's my screen color. Okay? Now you want to find the greenest part of that. Why is that stretching? There we go. So you want to find the greenest part of that, so that's why I grabbed that specific green. Now if I want to choose a different color and I control click again, what it's going to do is it grabs whatever color it's seeing. So anytime you control click, it grabs what color it sees. So when I control click, it grabs green. When I control click again, it's now grabbing black because black was this color that was just on the screen. If I control alt click, it'll actually grab whatever color is part of the source video. Okay? Or if I control shift click, it allows me to grab a range of colors, which can be nice. Because that can basically, it takes all those colors and averages them together. So if you have different values, like you can see, if I disable this, as I move my mouse in these areas, come on. There we go. In those areas, you can see that the green values and the red values and the blue values are all changing because they're not exact. There are some differences inside of it. Especially like over here where there's a shadow, and when we get further on, all this stuff over there. So that can be kind of a neat thing to have that set up. So your first job in Keylight is to pick your green screen. Then you can play with the screen gain. Okay, so what this is doing is basically like boosting that color so that it eliminates it better. So now, if we switch between the alpha and the regular, you can see we've eliminated most of that. Now it is picking up some on the shoes itself, so we need to obviously clean that up. And he's obviously very speckly. So he is, all the green that's picked up on the shoes, that's spill. That's the green reflecting and back into his shoes, back onto his clothing. So we can adjust all that stuff. We can play with the screen balance, which is basically just adjusting the coloration of it. So we don't need to, in this case, we don't need to play with it. We can also pre-blur the screen. So if you had a piece of video, it was pretty noisy, let's say, blurring the screen before you do it can get rid of some of the noise and make your green screen removal a little cleaner. So again, a lot of these things are so drag and drop or so simple just to kind of slide it up and see. It doesn't hurt to do it. In this case, it's not really removing anything from him, that area. Okay, so I'm not going to even bother with that. So here's where most of the stuff happens, is in the screen mat. So if I go to the alpha channel here, you can see we basically have a black and white image. He should be white, the background should be black. So where it has clip black and clip white, what it's going to do is basically like eliminate black or gray values, dark gray values, and the clip white is going to push the lighter values to more of a white. Okay, and again, you just kind of drag these and you can see what it's doing. So something that is like down here, these are darker values. As I pull this up, it's going to start eliminating those. Now as I pull the white up this way, it's going to take these lighter values and push them into the white. So you can see he is now pretty white. And then we're getting, see, you have to play this game of the gun is kind of reflecting some of that stuff. So we have to adjust this.
Can't do a mask on the key.
We can do that too. Okay, and then we also have clip rollback. So what this is going to do is going to compare this frame to last frame, and as it does that, it'll help kind of clean up some of the key. But again, you have to be wary of it because he has movement. We don't want to do it too much. Then we have screen dilating, so we can dilate the screen up or shrink the screen in. We also have screen softness, so we can soften the screen, adding a feather to it. Now all of these, like the dilate and the softness, I like to do those after. That way someone else who's looking at my stuff can see you dilated the screen after you got it, and then you softened it after you got it. That way it's easier to see. Otherwise, just looking at crop and then key light, they're not going to know what's going on. So I don't typically do those in here. When I went to the dilate, just so you can see this, it chooses this gray color. Okay, so what it's doing is it's trying to eliminate the green, so it replaces it with this gray color. So if I tell it to go back to source, it'll put the source back on there. And you can see if I go in here back to soft color or source, you can see how, number one, he's kind of grainy, like really grainy all of a sudden. Also, there's a lot of green that's happening right inside here. A lot of green in his skin. I'm going to pull that back down. I'm going to pull that back down. Oops. There we go. Okay. Oops. Soft color. So our goal in doing this is that we're looking for an alpha channel. That's what we want, okay? It doesn't matter what the colors on him are looking like right now. What matters is this alpha channel. That's what we're after. So we can come down here to tuning. We can adjust things like the shadows. So you can see like on the gun, I'm able to pull some of that gun noise back in there by playing with the shadows. And there's a little bit of green happening here, but I don't even think I'm really concerned about that too much because I want to have a little bit of noise there. I did pick up some of that, so let's see what that is. That midtones? Oops, too much there. Let's look at the alpha. Alright, let's check out the highlights. And then this is specifying where the midtone level is. Alright, so he's looking pretty good. We do have like this spot here and the spot there. But I'm not even concerned about those two spots because he pretty much stays like locked into where his head is. I can always just go with a roto and just cut it out. Okay, so don't worry about the little things like that. We're worried about the finer details. If this was a girl and her hair was flowing in the breeze, we definitely have to worry about it, but he's not. His hair is pretty smooth. So now I can add a blur node onto here and just kind of soften it. Now I don't want to soften all the channels like blurring him. I only want to soften my alpha. Okay, in order to see it, I have to go to my alpha channel and look at it. Okay, and if I want to see what this is going to look like all put together, I'm going to pre-multiply it, and then I'm going to merge it with a constant. And a constant is a good way to kind of just see what your stuff is doing.
Merge with a green constant.
Yeah. A and B. I'm going to have to swap those. Yep. There we go. So now we can see what he's looking like on basically a different color. So we do have some green in here. We can eliminate that. Some green down here. We could eliminate that. And then we have those two lines. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to drop in a roto, and I'm just going to go and paint this out. There we go. Now I have to go to my color here and say that my alpha is going to be black. That's all I need to do. Just say alpha is black there, and it just eliminates that piece. And then I'll go to my roto again. Do the same thing up here. Go to the color. Alpha is black. It eliminates it. Okay. Now this is for this one frame. I'd have to actually animate this as he's moving back. But again, because he's moving pretty much straight, no big deal. Okay. So that's cool there. Now let's eliminate some of this other stuff. So I think I want him to be a little bit softer, so let's go to our blur. Or not a little bit softer, but tighter. There we go, something like that. Alright, let me jump back to that rotor real quick and just kind of highlight some of these other areas that need to be adjusted. And you could even outline him, like I could do a big outline around him, and then that would be sufficient also. There we go. Alright, so now let's eliminate some of this green that's on top of him. So if I go to this mask here, I can kind of see where the green is around the edges because it's pretty much like within this small bordered area. Okay, so think of all of these things as just assets. So basically what I need to do is isolate the like a big border or an edge going around the guy. So if I take this alpha channel here, and I'm just going to copy this, I copy the alpha channel over here. And adjust some of my properties. There we go. So I just copy the alpha channel just to this crop node. So basically, it eliminates all this. Okay, it's just using the same alpha channel, putting it right back on the guy. So now if I, just to see if I pre-multiply this, he's going to have a lot more green than he did in that one. Okay, so what I can do is once I have this, then I could do a hue correct. And if I hover my mouse over these areas here, over the green, it's going to find those green inside this graph. So I know that it's like in the yellow-green area. It's right about between like 2 and 3, right about here. So I'm going to say, let's go to green suppression. I'm going to squeeze these bars closer together. And I'm just going to pull this down. And what this is doing is any of the green that was in that specific range is just desaturating it. It's just getting rid of that green. And you can see here as I come over to this area, it's more in the yellow. So I should probably pull this over to that side. There we go. I'm going to break this here. It's X. Break. Then I can grab this. I'll just move it over. Come on. So I'm just hitting X so I can adjust to that. X, X. Come on. There you go. So now I've suppressed all the green, so now we don't have any of the green inside there. Now this piece here, I may come back later and just kind of roto that out too. That shouldn't be a huge deal. All right, cool. All right, so now that we have this, now I need to add in some lens flares, or some gun flares. So I found online they have a muzzle flash pack. So this guy put together all these pictures of different muzzle flashes. They're only on there for like a frame or two, so we don't need like a video of it. You can literally just grab like a picture of a muzzle flash. Finding something that's obviously happening from the front is ideal, and finding something that kind of matches the kind of gun that it would be is ideal also. So he actually organized it. Here's a 45-degree muzzle flare. So you can see how it's coming out at an angle. And these are all just different pictures of it. And then here's a front and back one. Now his guns look like they're pretty boss. It looks like they're pretty heavy-duty guns. So something like that might actually be like workable. I may want to swap to a pistol just to kind of see like what does the pistol look like. That's kind of weak. Yeah, that's pretty weak. Or even the the assault rifle looked pretty good too. Yeah, okay. So let's say I'm going to grab one of these. So I'm just going to drag one of these into the mix. There it is. It looks horrible. Let's go and pre-multiply it. There we go, much better. Okay. And then I'm just going to merge it on top of it. And then use a transform just to position it on there. And we can size it down accordingly. Okay, now to get it to come on and go off, it's just transparency. That's all we're doing. So we go to the merge, And I'm going to say right here, it's on. Go back a frame, it's off. Go up a frame after that, it's off. So now, if we close all that, there it is. Now maybe we want to extend that just a little bit. So there.
You don't get much recoil.
No, he does recoil. I'm just grabbing this as a random frame. Yes, he does have a couple frames, like right here. I think he's shooting that one. So maybe we should just move that over. There we go. And let's go to our merge. Let's go to our dope sheet. And then we'll just move this down to where this is happening. There we go. Alright, so again, let's check that out. And then of course we can animate it too, because obviously it should have some sort of animation to it. So we'll come back here. Let's set a keyframe on that. Go up a frame, let's move it over. Up a frame, move it over.
Not staying for too long.
Sure is. I'll have to adjust that too. Alright, you should have been gone by now. What are you doing?
It's not lit.
There we go. Okay. Now, if we don't like the fact that it's like the same psh the whole time, let me get rid of these rotos here. I didn't animate the rotos, so they're just kind of hanging out. There we go. What we can do is if I just go to my read, and I just go to where I have those things, wow, look at that. That's a neat trick. So I'm replacing that with the video footage. Okay, now we still have that same image because right now it's still using like the last image in the sequence. So it goes through to the end and just keeps that last sequence on there. Our frames right now are at 90,000 and that sequence is 10 frames long. So I need to offset my frames here. Frame range. So my new frame range is going to be 90,138 to 90,158, 57. Okay. Let's use the other one, time offset. There you go. So I'm just going to offset this 90,142 frames. Oops, not 38 frames. There we go. So now we're getting a little bit different look at each one of those frames. And it's probably it's like tiny. It's like crazy tiny. There we go. Good enough. All right, and then we'll drop a background in behind him. Oh, we already did that. Okay. Now this is just our placeholder background. Right there. Let me just remerge this into here. There we go. Or that there. that's that. That's that. And then I need to set this to global and then set it to the frame range that I'm at. Where's his frame range? 90,000 to 9429. There we go. Okay, now you can create a different background. You could drop in a picture of a concrete floor or something, leave that as the background, and that'll work. Okay, so that's Keylight. All of this other stuff, it applies regardless of whether you're using Keylight or Ultimate or anything. Keylight just generates the alpha channel. All right, so now let's look at a different one just so you can see it. So there's Primat. This one has a background and foreground. So your background is like what's going underneath it. So if you had a sample thing you wanted to try out, you could throw it in here. Like in this case, we have this constant. So if I preview this and drop this constant in as my background, when I erase my color, I'll see that as my background. So I'm going to go to Primat and same thing, select background color. So Control click, and then we have this green or pink background now. Okay, and you can see how it's even picking up some of the shading that was in the view. So sometimes that's actually nice to have because then it feels like instead of it being flat, you actually get some of the shading on there. Now, one cool thing about this is that when I Control Shift and I marquee it, it actually is doing a pretty good job of selecting a good combination of colors there instead of just the one. But here's where it really is awesome. With Primat, we basically tell it we're going to clean background noise and clean foreground noise. So all of the stuff that is not foreground or background that it's picking up is just noise it's considering. So I'm going to go to clean background noise, hold down Control Shift and just marquee, and what it's doing is selecting more of that color. Okay, so instead of this being just like the one green, it's grabbing more samples of that green color and extracting those. So this gives me a pretty clean plate. Okay, there's some areas down here, maybe I'll grab those too. That's pretty good. I probably want to keep this because that's like his shadow. Some noise back there, I can grab that. All right, that's pretty good. I can just remove those after. You don't want to grab something like this with your keyer because that color is too close to something that's on him. It's going to start pulling stuff off of him. So we want to keep it as clean as possible. So that's cleaning the background noise. Now I'm going to go clean the foreground noise and do a very similar thing. Control Shift and just drag on top of him. Like all these areas that are coming up as like gray, I'm just picking those. There we go. And now we have that. And then we can go to spill minus. So if I want to remove some of the spill, nope, not picking that up. Let's go to spill sponge. There we go. It's pink. There we go. I put it back in there because it just wasn't coming off right. That spill sponge is supposed to suck up any of the spill. So like even here. But the problem is sometimes it does it too aggressively, and so it's just basically like, it makes it pink because pink is the opposite of green. That's why it's coloring it pink. Not because of that.
Oh.
Right. Oops, wrong one. All right. So I just have to remove that green using the other green screen thing remover. All right. So that's pretty decent right there. Okay. Now we can use this in combination with a roto. So I could just add in a roto shape. Okay. Remember we're just using this for alpha. So if I go to here and I draw in a pretty quick roto. I clip the gun, but I don't care about that right now. Okay, so there's the basic roto shape. Here's this. There's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these two alpha channels together. So I'm going to go to a merge right here. And on this merge, I'm just going to say let's merge the alphas. Okay, and so what I'm getting now, though, is I'm getting that area is red, which it should be. The other area is black, but I want everything else outside of that area to be gone. So if I look at what this alpha looks like, it looks like that. Okay, if I look at what this one looks like, it looks like that. So if I just take this over, and output is just going to be alpha. There we go. And I set this to be a multiply. You can see what it does is that a roto shape is basically just like a garbage mask. It's just a way to isolate where we want to green screen from. And so now I have a pretty clean alpha channel, and all I do is I just copy the alpha channel back into this. Okay, so now this piece of footage right here has this clean alpha channel that was driven from a primat, from a roto, and then merged. And then I would have to animate this roto. You have to check out your primat throughout the animation just to verify that it's still working. Because once I get here, he's actually still in it, isn't he? No, he's gone. Poor guy. Once he gets past that line, you can see where his head just kind of disappears into that shape. Okay, because that roto is not animated, but because it's so rough, we can probably animate it pretty quickly. And then we pre-multiply it, pretty clean. Then we would go through and do our hue correct, find out where that green is at. There it is. You can also control click on something and it'll like lock it in. So if I control click on one of these greens, it's locking in that value. So I just say suppress the green. Let's pull this down. And there we go. So now it's going to be gray. So if we had a gray image dropped in, it would kind of match pretty perfect. It would look like a shadow or reflection or something. If we didn't like it, we can just roto that shape out and just lock it into it. And then the rest of this, like I said before, all of this stuff is going to be the same. All of adding that bullet in there is all the same. All right, now for Ultimat. And this one is my least favorite. I know it can do a lot of stuff. Yeah. Come on. I did this before. It like wouldn't update. All right, delete, delete. Come on. There it goes. So now it updated. All right. So when your screen is full size, all the stuff is right here. Here's the screen, here's the overlay, the matte, the spill, matching colors and whatever else. So with this one, it all starts with the same thing, pick a color. And sometimes you may want to go around and Control-Alt-click on any of these and try to find the one that's going to give you the best results. Because if I pick this screen, you can see how much noise is in there. If I Control-Alt-click over here, I get a lot less grain happening inside there. All right, then I can go to the density and just play with this. Now you have to look at the alpha. If I just stay in color mode, I'm going to lose what the information is there. So I need to look at the alpha and play with this to get that to look right. Yeah, shrinking the mask a little bit. Orphans are these little guys, these little like random pieces here. So are they medium? Are they fine? Are they coarse? Do you want to get rid of them? They're a drag on society. There we go. So you can keep playing with that. This one you can enable a shadow and it'll pull it out. I typically don't use Ultimat that often. Keylight's your best shot because Keylight's also an After Effects. So if you know how to use Keylight when you're playing in After Effects, you could easily just use it. And it's not like a huge deal. So you can look up more about Ultimat. Like I said, I don't typically use it that much. There's a bunch of other ones too that are not even listed here. This is Furnace. And Furnace has like its own keyers and stuff that it uses in their higher end stuff. You just have to pay for them. Okay, so that's what you're going to do for this one. So you're going to take out the background, drop in a new floor, put some gun flares on him, and make sure it's nice and clean, and then that's it. Okay? It does sound simple. Yeah, it is. Just a couple things.
For these assignments, do you just want the videos?
Yes, the videos in an O graph. That's all I need. Okay? All right, so that's it. So that's going to take us to the end of the semester. The last thing that we're going to be doing is making a demo reel with all the pieces. So not next week because I'm not going to be here, like I said. The week after, I'll go through that process of how to make the demo reel off of all the pieces. We only have a few pieces. All right.